can I ask you what's the biology of the death cap mushroom?
So the death cap mushroom the growing part of this kind of fungus is fine threads that grow in the soil. They are there whether or not the sporing body, which is the mushroom, is present. So that growing part in the soil, the technical term is mycelium, that is connected to the roots of living trees, in particular members of the oak family.
Today in the trial of Erin Patterson, a different type of witness took to the stand. Tom May is a mycologist, a mushroom expert, and he explained to the jury in extensive detail the inner workings of death caps, the toxic fungus at the centre of this case. He talked about what makes them different from other mushrooms, where they can be found, and the toxin that makes them so dangerous. I'm Brooke Grebert-Craig, and this is The Mushroom Cook. I'm joined as usual by my colleague, court reporter Laura Placella. Hi, Laura.
It's great to be back here at our makeshift podcast studio in Morwell.
Yes, it is. So we're on week 3, day 10 of the trial. So today the jury mainly heard evidence from mushroom expert Dr. Tom May. It was his words, but not his voice at the start of the episode. In that little clip, he was being questioned by Crown Prosecutor Nanette Rogers. Laura, can you tell the listeners a bit more about Dr. May?
Certainly. So he is an internationally recognised fungi specialist. So he has a lot of knowledge about mushrooms. He's been associated with the Royal Botanic Gardens for about 30 years and has written books, academic papers, the works.
So at the beginning of his evidence, Dr. May really educated the jury about death cap mushrooms, and a slideshow was shown to them.
Yes, if I'm being honest, today probably felt a little bit like class for some of the jurors. There was a lot of information they had to take in. He began his evidence simply walking the jury through what are death cap mushrooms. He explained that their scientific name is Amanita phalloides. The Amanita refers to a group of toxic mushrooms, and phalloides is the specific species.
And he said that they were accidentally introduced to Australia and they were first reported in Melbourne in the 1970s.
Yeah, that's right. Death cap mushrooms are not native to Australia, so they did come over here through some sort of means. And the jury were actually shown a map of the world where death cap mushrooms can be found. And in the Australian portion of the map, you can see quite a cluster around Victoria.
And for any of our listeners that are wondering, what do death cap mushrooms actually look like?
Tom May told the jurors that, at least when it comes to the colour of the cap of the mushroom, so that's the bit at the top, he said death caps are usually greenish or yellowish, but they could be whitish or brownish, with or without white patches. He also spoke about their lifespan, and he spoke about how death caps have a symbiotic relationship with trees, particularly oak trees. But instead of me trying and probably failing to explain how death caps grow, I'll throw to Dr. May. These are his words, it's not his voice.
That mycelium sits in the soil over years, and from time to time every year, usually under suitable conditions, it produces a sporing body, which is the mushroom that we see.
Dr. May also spoke about how other mushrooms can look like death caps. Like Laura, I'm going to leave it to the expert as well.
But there are certainly some mushrooms that occur in Victoria that are quite similar in appearance to the death cap. For example, the stubble rosegill. This shares the cup at the base of the stem, but it differs from the death cap because it grows in mulch and doesn't have a ring on the stem, and it doesn't have the yellow or green tones that are often present in the death cap. And it has a pinkish brown spore print in comparison to a white spore print.
Under cross-examination by defence barrister Sophie Stafford, Dr. May spoke quite a bit about how challenging it can be to identify mushrooms. The court heard that it was possible for people to consume poisonous mushrooms, having foraged them believing they were safe to eat. Dr. May also spoke about how toxic mushrooms can sometimes grow alongside non-toxic mushrooms, making the identification process really difficult. He even went as far to say that people who forage for mushrooms should take part in some sort of apprenticeship so they can be really across how to identify toxic mushrooms from non-toxic mushrooms.
So now moving on to more of Dr. May's evidence, the jury heard about a publicly accessible website called iNaturalist.
And our listeners may actually remember this website from one of our first episodes where the prosecution set out their case against Erin. They mentioned the iNaturalist website and how it was a place for members of the public to post photos and observations of plants, animal and fungi.
The jury was shown photos of the website, and Dr. May said there were more than 440,000 posts about mushrooms from Australia.
The jury was then shown a map of Victoria, which we mentioned earlier in the episode. Across the map, you could see red dots, which specified the areas where death caps had been logged. Dr. May was then specifically brought to the Gippsland region, and he was asked how many observations had been made in this area for death caps. He said there were 2, one in Lock and one in Outram. And these posts were made in April and May 2023, so about 2 months before the fatal lunch.
And Lock and Outram are both small townships in South Gippsland, which are both close to Erin's house in Leongatha.
Dr. May was then asked specifically about the log in Outram, and he told the jury that he was the one who actually posted about those death cap mushrooms. He explained he was in Outram in May 2023 to make a presentation to a local community group about fungi. But then during the day, he went for a walk and stumbled across these death caps along a street. He pulled out his phone and, as he's done previously, he made a log about them. The jury were actually shown a screenshot of his post, and you could see that his username on the website is Funky Tom. And I'll just make it clear, it's not Fungy Tom, it is Funky Tom with an EY. And on the website, you can see a map, some photos of the death cap mushrooms that Dr. May took, and a little description. He told the jury he provided a very precise pin for the location of these mushrooms, including the latitude and the longitude. Now, our listeners may actually remember that during the prosecution opening, Nanette Rogers explained to the jury that it was the prosecution case that Erin had travelled to both Lock and Outram after these iNaturalist posts were logged. Nanette Rogers told the jury that the phone records suggest Erin was herself in Lock on April 28, so that's 10 days later. As for Dr. May's post, which was made on May 21, the prosecution case is that Erin travelled to the same area the very next day on May 22 and stayed there for a period of time. The jury is expected to later hear from an expert in phone records who will further explain this evidence.
And Dr. May's evidence will continue tomorrow. But before we finish the episode, Laura, let's just touch upon other witnesses that took the stand today, in particular, more medical witnesses.
So this morning, the jury heard from Laura Muldoon. She was an emergency registrar at Monash Health in July 2023, and she treated Erin after she was transported there from Leongatha Hospital. Now, this was on July 31, so 2 days after the lunch. And Dr. Muldoon told the court that when she examined Erin, she noticed she had chapped lips, but otherwise looked very well. She said she took her vital signs and took some blood that was sent off for testing. The court heard that the next day, on August 1, those test results had come back, but there was no signs of Amanita poisoning, which is the medical term for toxic mushroom poisoning. And by 1 p.m, Erin was told that she was good to go home.
The jury also heard from Professor Rhonda Stewart. She was the Director of Infection Prevention and Public Health at Monash Health in July 2023. She told the court that Erin said that she used button mushrooms from a supermarket and dried mushrooms from an Asian food shop from either Oakley or Glen Waverley in her beef Wellington meal. Professor Stewart asked Erin whether she had been foraging, and Erin replied no.
And Dr. Muldoon also gave evidence about this. She said she asked Erin the same question, whether she had foraged for wild mushrooms, and Erin also denied doing this.
Without a doubt, it's been a dense day of evidence. I'm sure there'll be more to come.
We'll stay tuned.
Thanks, Laura.
See you tomorrow.